Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet. I want to start by paraphrasing Sophia from the Golden Girls. Picture it, Vermont, 1988. My first wedding. It was the stuff of childhood dreams. I knew exactly what my wedding dress would look like long before I met the groom. Ice blue satin, covered with lace, princess sleeves, sweetheart neckline, full skirt, and, if my train was as long as Princess Diana's, that would be okay. It was totally 80s. And the groom wore a uniform just like my dad did when he and my mom got married in 1943. Just like that wedding photo I'd seen and cherished for so many years. Our first dance was to Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are. You know the line. Don't go changing. Romantic? Yes. A good omen? No. Maybe not. Because here's the truth. Change is inevitable. And honestly, I like change. Change your tires. And don't forget to rotate and balance them while you're at it. Change into fresh clothes. Change the water in the fish tank. There are plenty of good reasons to change. Welcome to The Imperfect Prophet, a podcast for women who wonder. I'm your host, Wonder Wendy, and today we're talking about a word that makes chinchillas quake in their tiny little paws. Change. Chinchillas are creatures of habit. Sudden changes in their diet, cage, or routine can make them stressed or skittish. And honestly, we humans aren't much different. Change rattles us too, even when it's good for us, which is why I'm talking about my first wedding, Billy Joel. And for those of you who voted for this topic in my survey, Cracker Barrel. Here's the thing, just like chinchillas, humans don't always like change. I was reminded of that recently when Cracker Barrel came under fire for changing something that so many people apparently loved about the restaurant. Now, let me be clear, I don't really have an opinion about the logo change. And brightening up a few locations while keeping the country charm, totally reasonable. What struck me wasn't the change itself, but the mania it stirred up on the news and on social media. Everyone suddenly had an opinion, and it turned into a cultural flashpoint. Now, don't get me wrong. I have my own romantic notions about Cracker Barrel. I still remember the first time I visited one way back in 1991. Yes, more than 30 years ago. And it looked just the way it looks today. I was traveling in the South and fell in love with the gift shop, the rocking chairs, and that glorious bottomless cup of coffee. As Cracker Barrel expanded across the country, I would stop in whenever I spotted one by the roadside. For much of the last 30 years, I've been living in Vermont, and there was no Cracker Barrel there. As a matter of fact, Cracker Barrel is still in 43 states and not in Vermont, but that's a different story. At that time, I could only visit a Cracker Barrel when traveling, and it was nostalgic and it was wonderful. But here's the truth. Now, I live 11 miles from a Cracker Barrel location. I can't remember the last time I ate at a Cracker Barrel. Okay, I still wax poetic about grandma's fried apples, the chicken fried steak, and meals with enough calories to sustain my body for at least 2 days. But here's the rub. Just like my first marriage, I want that memory to stay exactly the same. The perfect wedding day, the perfect roadside meal. But life has other plans. We grow, we move, we change. Our needs change. But America, it seems, wants an unchanged Cracker Barrel waiting in the wings, exactly as it was, exactly when they want it, even if they've long stopped showing up. And let's be honest, the stock didn't drop just because of a logo change. Much more likely, changes were made because revenues were already down. Relationships work the same way. We don't get divorced because someone tripped over their partner's shoes one more time. Relationships end slowly. The change is catalyzed by one dramatic moment, whether it's a new logo or those shoes in the hallway. Now, I suspect a lot of investors bought Cracker Barrel stock out of nostalgia. People often invest in what they like rather than what the numbers say. And then when the media announce profits are down, suddenly they look beyond the nostalgia and divest. Think about GameStop. Emotion, not facts, driving the market. So maybe the question isn't whether change is good or bad. Maybe the real question is, where in your life are you clinging to an old memory instead of embracing the new chapter in front of you? There is a rhythm to change, too. Right now is a perfect time of year to ask this question. The seasons are shifting. Kids are back to school. Work routines are kicking back in. If you do summer sports, you're shifting into winter sports, or at least you're waxing your skis for when there might be a snowflake in the future. And maybe you feel that now, starting a new job, a new routine, a new chapter. It's the same butterflies. It's the same nerves. Remember that first day of school as a kid? Terrifying. New classroom, new teacher, new rules. But by the end of October, it already felt routine. That's the rhythm of change. Terrifying at first, but eventually it settles. There's even a play with the perfect title. I love you. You're perfect. Now change. Isn't that the truth? We fall in love with someone or something just the way it is. The quirks, the charm, the comfort. But then over time, we start asking for change. Be more attentive. Be less messy. Be more like my idea of you. It's funny on stage, but in real life, it's where a lot of our tension lives. We want things to stay exactly the same until we don't. Change is not only necessary, it's healthy. Be open to the possibility of what's waiting for you if you can open yourself to the new possibilities. I know it's not always easy, but I'm going to ask you to dive in a little bit. Think of that favorite sweater. It feels so comfortable, but it really doesn't look good anymore. Sure, keep it for blanket fort days, but when you're leaving the house, have a little personal pride. What once served you may not be your best choice anymore. Oh, and if you want to hear more about blanket fort days, that's an old episode. Go back through my library and take a listen if you haven't already. And if you haven't listened in a while, maybe it's time to revisit the need for a blanket fort day. Now, this next metaphor doesn't work for me because my parents downsized less than a year after I graduated from college. So the room I grew up in was sold, emptied, gone. But I've seen a lot of adults return to a time capsule in their childhood home. Would you ever move back into that room with your high school trophies and teen heartthrobs still on the wall? Just think about that. And then there are all of the times that we force other people to stay the same for our comfort. My cousin always had these long, beautiful, dark locks of hair, thick and curly. I had a friend who referred to it as comic book hair because it looked so perfect and amazing. Now, after she'd had 2 kids, maintaining that hair was just one more thing she didn't want to deal with. She casually mentioned to her sister, "I think I'm going to cut it all off." Much to her surprise, her phone started to ring off the wall. Do you remember when the phone used to be on the wall and when it rang, you had to go answer it? Yeah, back then. Her family was up in arms. They were practically staging an intervention to keep her from cutting her hair. And here's the lesson. It was her hair, not theirs. And hair grows back. And yes, it has. Now it's sprinkled with a little bit of silver because those children are grown. But you have to remember, change. What are we forcing? What are we hanging on to that we shouldn't hang on to? Now, I can't say I've mastered accepting change. Remember, not perfect. The first time we visited Arizona, before my husband and I got married, I had aging parents. I had kids in school in Vermont. Moving couldn't have been further from my mind. Now, Arizona was beautiful in a different sort of way, but on the plane home, I said I could never picture myself living there. What I didn't know was that my future husband's heart broke a little bit that day. Fast forward several years, and I began to see how much he loved the dry heat and endless sunshine. I stopped resisting and started exploring solutions. Now, I've lived in Arizona for almost 10 years, and I love it here. It does seem a little odd that I don't see my Vermont friends as often, and when I go back, it's impossible to see everyone. Sometimes I follow them on Facebook just to stay somewhat current, and I'll see their children. But I see a picture, and it's not a child, and I say, wait, they're only 8 years old. Forgetting that a decade has passed, and yes, they are going off to college, getting married, starting new chapters in their lives. Those children are turning into young adults or already adults. Time passes. They grow. We move. Things change. Even chinchillas can adapt. So can I, and so can you. So what about you? Have you ever been fired from a job only to realize later it was a gift? Yeah, I'm going to take a sip of coffee and let you think about that one. What's your Cracker Barrel? The thing you want to stay the same, even though you don't use it anymore. Are you trying to live in a room where there are teen heartthrobs pictured on the walls? If this is resonating with you, give it more thought. And what's one thing you're resisting changing that might actually set you free? If something came to mind, write it down right now. Grab a pen, grab your phone, whatever you need to do to write yourself a note that you are going to address this. Ask yourself, what's keeping me from making that change? Billy Joel sang, "Don't go changing to try and please me." And there's the rub. Yes, compromise with the people around you. Life is a delicate balance. But don't change who you are just to make someone else happy. At the same time, don't cling to things that don't really matter. Logos change. Hair grows back. We learn to live in new places. So maybe the lyrics should be written, "Keep on changing. I'll love you just for being you." Time passes. They grow. We move. Things change. And here's the thing. Even chinchillas, quaking in their little paws, can adapt. So can I. So can you. I love you. You are practically imperfect. No, wait, you are practically perfect. I'm practically imperfect in every way. And change if that suits you. Now, you knew it would come. Here's your bucket list challenge. You've written something down that resonated with you. What's one small, playful change that you could make this week? Maybe it's a new color lipstick. Maybe it's sitting at a different place at the dining room table. Whatever. You got this. I look forward to talking to you next week. Until then, have a wonderful week. Stay hydrated, and life's too short to pass on the fried apples once in a while. Talk to you soon.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends. Join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.